Let's bring in a guy with beautiful skin, Alan May from Monumental Sports, Washington. And Al, if I may, this is always fun. You want to start with the fun stuff or the serious stuff? Your call. You're the guest.
I'm happy either way. I love talking hockey. If we're talking hockey, I'll talk anything.
Okay. Well, I just got some messages from some of your old homies from the Energy City. I'll get to that near the end of the broadcast. There's somebody that will surprise you, probably. But I guess we'll start with the Capitals. Why not? That's the team that you analyze on Monumental Sports. They're 8-3, and I didn't see it coming. Did you?
I actually didn't. I think it was on your show talking about the incredible June and July they had. They didn't have a Stanley Cup parade like they do in Toronto every July 2nd, but I thought they were very methodical in how they built this team for the season. Right now, they're not enjoying the fruits of having Chychrun and Matt Roy in the lineup. I think Roy will get back tomorrow night. But once they get everyone back in the lineup on defense, they're going to be even that much better. Karlsson and Chychrun have been amazing together. It looks like a right-handed John Karlsson and a left-handed John Karlsson. Two big guys that can skate, shoot the puck, move it, do everything. And then Matt Roy is one of the best defensive defensemen in the National Hockey League. He passes the eye test and the analytical test. So what they've been able to do is push everyone down the lineup. Players are stepping up. But when you look at what they've really done, it's the way they put together the top six. Strome, Ovechkin, Protas, one of the best lines in the league early. Dubois, Wilson, Connor McMichael, one of the best second lines in the league early. So you look at everything they're doing. Their fourth line is continuing to roll with Nick Dowd, Taylor Radish, Brandon Duhaime. They've been gritty every night. They've been providing offense, but they've been providing good checking. But I think the biggest thing was the risk and the chance that they took on Pierre-Luc Dubois. He's bodying guys. He's opening up ice for everyone. He's been a really good all-round player. The puck's not going into the net for him right now. He's a little bit snake-bit, but he's been getting grade A opportunities. He's been playing very well, and he's been a very big part of this team early.
So far. You know what I'm talking about. But Jacob Chychrun, you brought it up. 8 games. Now, I got to get you down here, Al, because his buddy Jeff is a buddy of mine. We hang out here in Boca. And I said, you never scored like your kid. And he was like, he is all that. Are you surprised that he was available from Ottawa? I was shocked that Ottawa would let him go.
Well, the Caps have been trying to get a hold of him for a couple years ago. And at one point, they offered 2 first-round draft picks and a pretty good young defenseman that was on the roster. And Ottawa just kept, or not Ottawa, but the Arizona Coyotes general manager kept changing the price of Rice. And it ended up, they ended up a worse deal with Ottawa. Ottawa's got contract problems because they're going to have to pay some young players. And on the left side, they looked like they were somewhat overcrowded. But to get him for Nick Jensen in a third rounder, I thought was masterful. I thought Brian McClellan, Chris Patrick did a great job there. But I'm not surprised. And speaking of my old dance partner, Jeff Chychrun, I told him at the Caps 50th anniversary alumni weekend, he was in town for opening weekend, that he would have been the perfect partner for his son. Big old cross-checks, right-handed defenseman, cleaning out the front of the net. Then you have this young offensive guy that can play every style of hockey. And I'm not surprised that Chychrun's been very well. He's never been on a quality hockey team. I think like the Washington Capitals, you've got savvy veterans. You've got a legit chance to play in the playoffs. Last year with the roster they had, the injuries that they had, the style of hockey that they had to play to make the playoffs is nothing compared to the roster they have right now. The style of play they've been able to elevate because they've got speed in the lineup. They got guys that can finish in the lineup. So they're able to open up offensively and still play a pretty damn good brand of defensive hockey. So not surprised with Jacob playing as well as he has. But the biggest surprise to me is from the day they put the very first shift, the very first game in preseason, they put Karlsson and Chychrun together, they look like they've been playing together for 20 years. I don't know if they'll keep them together all year, maybe share the wealth a little bit. John Karlsson is still one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League who doesn't get anywhere near the props he deserves. The NHL ice time leader last year, he's in the top 5 this year. I don't know if he's first, second, or third today, but he hasn't missed a beat, and he's still exceptional.
Hey, well, I get, Jacob, 2 goals, 2 assists with you guys in 8 games plus 5. It had to have been a money thing in Ottawa. He's from Ottawa, or you know what I mean. The family's from Ottawa. He loved it there. I don't get it, but I know he's really happy in Washington. Jeff's told me that, so everything happens for a reason, right? I would just like to see him finish up one day with the Panthers. I think he would be awesome here, and this is where he was born. Enough of all that. Give me the goods on the anniversary weekend, because Kevin Kaminsky, I've seen all his photos, and he saw you were coming on today, Killer, and what's he call you, Albie? What's your nickname down there?
Albie. It had to do from a dance floor in Sweden back in the 80s. So but you know what? Our 50th anniversary alumni weekend was spectacular. And you know, the greatest thing about it was there were players that played here on the worst team in the history of the National Hockey League in 1974. They only had 8 victories, I believe. And for those guys who were playing in an empty arena in the middle of nowhere, and the way the expansion franchises, the opportunities for players were not very good back then. And they got your broken players, they've got your older players, you got your players at the end of their career. And it just wasn't a good setup, and teams were set up to fail. So for those older players to come in was spectacular for me. I think for everybody to see what it's become. The way the franchise, they probably got more swag in the 4 days that they were in D.C. than they had in their entire hockey career, because teams were so notoriously cheap back in the day. And they all left with incredible varsity jackets, blazer, you name it. They got everything. We actually had an itinerary of what to wear every day. We had so much swag, and it was so fun to be around those old players and hear what they went through. But to see the joy on their face when they did the red carpet on Saturday before the season opener was incredible for me. And just to see how happy they were. And the best part about the weekend is a lot of times players, you see your old teammates, and it's like you've never been apart. It's like you've been best of friends forever, that you've been on the phone, you've been texting, and in reality you haven't. And you kind of track back to each other. But on this weekend, we had so much free time together. All the generations were mixing together, and that was the best part of the weekend to me. And I saw, a lot of tears in the eyes of the players. The way they were treated by the Capitals organization was beyond first class, and I'm just so happy that I got to be a part of it.
Was Gary Green there?
Gary Green was there, and he is one of the best guys in the world to ever hang out and speak with. You know, he was the youngest coach in the history of the National Hockey League at just 26 years old. One of the most self-deprecating guys with an incredible love and knowledge of the National Hockey League. And I did my first television with Gary at the NHL Network in 2007. I absolutely love him. He is spectacular to be around, and I think the only problem with the weekend that we had, most guys arrived on Wednesday, is that it didn't go another week or so, because the stories were incredible. The guys made sure that they spent so much time together. And like I said, the Capitals made sure it wasn't a dog and pony show of go here, sign this, do that. They let us actually mix and mingle the entire week, which to me was a dream come true, because a lot of those guys, you grew up, they're the reasons you played in the NHL. You saw those players back in the day, and you know a lot more about them than they know about you, because you were a youngster watching the guys in the National Hockey League back then. So it was pretty cool. Ryan Walter, a guy that I didn't get to play with, but I always loved watching as a younger guy. One of the best humans around. And it was just one guy after another that was great for all of us to be a part of.
Good for them for putting it on, and for all of you for enjoying it. I think if Gary Green is the TV guy, I really enjoyed him, obviously, on television as an analyst, but that's all good. Alan, tell me again, how do you say that nickname, because the mic's been Albie? How do you say it?
It's Albee. And I don't know what the guy was, if he was an R&B singer back in the day, but it was Albie Sure. And we had a couple of guys on the squad back then that gave every single one of us nicknames. And there's a great 1-hour story on how I got that nickname. So the next time I see you in person, we'll sit down and I'll tell you the entire story.
Okay, stuck with you for a long time, but Albie was with the Capitals from 89 to 94, and now does the television. So I'll just leave you with this, and we got plenty of time. You don't need to rush, but Jeff Sandquist, ladies and gentlemen, he left Estevan in the 90s to go to Seattle to go work for Microsoft. Now he's built all these massive companies and everything. And Alan, I don't want to put you on the spot. I feel like I always put you on the spot with stories you probably don't want to tell. But Jeff says, Alan May, I love that man. Have him tell some billet family stories about Melody if you want some nice, warm stories on this election day. I know the one about how you were trying to break a slump and what she said you needed to do. You had the best billet in hockey history, Melody Pedersen.
A lot of us did. One of the best stories I can have that's PG is one afternoon, and I was of drinking age, and one afternoon I came up and I had a great game day routine, and it was on a Saturday afternoon, and I came in, and she goes, "Oh my God, you need to sit down and have a drink." So she poured me a rum and Coke, a Bacardi and Coke, and she said, Bert, her husband, Bert had smashed into my car in the driveway, and it was a cold January night or whatever it was. So I had the drink. I went out. I couldn't see anything wrong with my car. There was a little crack in one of the fenders, and it was pretty cold. So it was more or less like a cold crack to me. So I ended up making money on the project, but I went and played the game that night. I scored 5 goals, had an assist. I don't think I was in the penalty box, but I had 5 goals and had an assist. And I was so into habits back then. I'm surprised I didn't start drinking before every game, because I would end up with 100 goals by the end of that season if that was the case. But never did that ever again. It was a one-shot wonder, and it was just one of those funny stories that all the time Mel was there to do something that was over the top, and just an incredible person with an incredible family. And really, when I think of Estevan, I think of the Pedersen family.
Of course, and that's why she was honored by the Bruins and the SJHL, given that honorary Lifetime Billet Award that you and I were there when she got it together. That was so awesome. And it reminds me a little of that. You probably don't have time for a lot of Netflix, Al, but there's that show out right now, The Comeback, on the Red Sox Yankees in 2004. And those guys were all shooting rye before games. The Red Sox, and they won. So I don't know. I wouldn't advocate it, but I guess it does happen. Okay, Al, anything else before I let you go?
No, that's the biggest thing. One of the things I could never, I had to go to bed by a certain hour. I was so into my habits and my rituals and all of those things that, and it all started, Jerry James was my coach, one of the best coaches I ever had. Too bad he was such a stubborn old man, but he was so set in his ways, but his ways were pretty good, and wasn't the easiest guy to get along with, but he taught us all about our rituals and our habits and how to prepare for success. And, I was already kind of a little on that OCD track younger, but he just reinforced everything, and it worked for me. And, I didn't have a chance in hell at making the National Hockey League. I think my rituals, my habits, my work ethic, always thinking ahead of the box. And he was one of the first guys that taught me about how you ate, and, rather than just eating everything, what you ate, how you ate, your conditioning levels. And all of those things paid off for me. It's one of the huge reasons that I made every team that I ever made in pro hockey, was I was on a different level, physically conditioning, and, just going out there. By the time the third day of training camp was rolling around, I was improving. The other guys were still sore and out of shape. So he helped me a lot along the way. So I just owe so much to the city of Estevan, and the fact that they had such a very well-run, community-ran hockey team that gave me an outlet to play in. I didn't want to play in my hometown of Edmonton on any of those junior teams. I wanted to get away and be focused on just doing that. So it would never ever happen if I didn't get to play in the SJHL.
And Kid Dynamite would know a little bit about training, a guy who won a Grey Cup with the Blue Bombers and a Stanley Cup with the Maple Leafs. Yeah. All right, Al. Thanks for this. Always good seeing you. Enjoy the hockey.
Take care, Rod. See you soon.